Oh my goodness, I am so excited about this. Maureen Callahan from the Nerve podcast. This is like superstar status for me always. Thank you for coming back on the show.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for having me, Donna.
I can't believe how your show has become. I mean, number one, it's such a big hit. The last time I talked to you, I don't remember exactly what we were specifically focusing on. I can't remember. It was Chrissy Teigen, it was Meghan Markle, but it was so
Yeah,
many months ago. And since then, you've just blown up.
it's wild. It's really been crazy and fun and unexpected. And I think the thing that is really most satisfying and gratifying is that we have the audience at the Nerve, the troublemakers, are so we're all so emotionally engaged with each other and everything that we talk about on the show and all of the celebrities that we take to the woodshed. You know, we call the Nerve Real Talk
Yes.
about fake people.
Yes.
And but we have the most fun with it.
How do you, okay, this is like probably a personal question. How do you skate the line of talking major smack about these celebrities and not getting complete hate from your audience? Is it just because your audience knows that this is who you are? Because I love that you just say it like it is. You say what we're all thinking and what probably most people feel in the Hollywood world or in the podcast world feel scared to say. But I love that people come to your show and they just don't expect the nice, like that you feel like you have to be fake about
Well,
people.
thank you for that. Thank you for that. I mean, I think that we're filling a real hole in the culture. You know, I think part of the reason that the audience trusts me is I've been doing this since I was like 17 years old.
Yeah.
So I have a very long history in journalism, in from investigative hardcore reporting to, you know, pop culture stuff. I've been a columnist for quite a while now. I always bring the receipts. You know, if I'm going to talk about Ryan Reynolds burning down his elementary school in Canada and how he got away with it, and actually thought for a very long time that some other, as he said, poor schmuck might have gone to prison for that. Well, I'm going to bring all of the evidence, all of the reportage, all of the newspaper reportage, all the times Ryan Reynolds talked about that. And then I'm going to ask why Ryan Reynolds has not been held to account for that crime, because apparently, as far as I understand it, there's no statute of limitations in Canada. The guy has always given me the creeps, and now I have a reason to understand why.
Seriously. Seriously. I love that story. I know that you talked about that, and you know, I'm deep down in the Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Justin Baldoni story. So I am all about your reporting on Ryan Reynolds and of course the John Hamm of it all. I went down
Hmm.
this path with you. Whenever you have someone that you're taking to your woodshed, I'm like, open the door, bring me in there. I want to see who's in that woodshed. Who is going to be in
Yeah.
the woodshed for 2026? Like
Well,
who?
okay, this is very interesting. I also do want to say that at the Nerve, we do have our local heroes. We have the people in the culture we do love and celebrate, and things in the culture we do love and celebrate. I know we're going to talk a little bit about Ask Not, and
Yeah.
Jackie Kennedy Onassis is probably the patron saint of the Nerve. Now, 2026 is interesting. What we're going to do at the end of this year, which is rapidly approaching, as you know, we're doing our very first ever Nerve Awards. And we've got a bunch of categories going. We've got we're like dressing the set. We're very, very excited. You know, I've said this will not come as a surprise, but like a shoe-in contender for a nomination, we don't know if it's going to win, is the Cocaine Clause. And if you don't remember, Donna, the Cocaine Clause was introduced to us by Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's prenuptial agreement, in which Nicole had it written that if she caught Keith snorting the blow, he wasn't getting a certain amount of money. Or you had to pay her like $1 million a year, some crazy
It's
shit like that.
insane. Oh
Yeah.
my God. You find the best stuff. And I watched, now that just jogged my memory, I watched the like the red carpet. Was it the
Oh, the
Oscars that
Emmy
you guys did?
night, Emmy night. Yeah.
Emmys. I chose you guys over
Thank
over
you.
everything. No, I turned it on my big TV. on YouTube. I turned it on for my family. I mean, I don't know if anyone else watched it, but I watched it. I watched you and Kinsey and everyone. I was loving cuz you guys, you're like the Joan Rivers. You say
Oh,
what
I
is.
could, okay, that is an amazing compliment, and I could not even, touch the hem of her dress. But I loved Joan Rivers. I
Me
miss her
too.
immensely. Her documentary, A Piece of Work. Any of your audience hasn't seen it, I can't
Best.
recommend it highly enough. And she reinvented not only red carpet coverage, but she was the first one like throwing those little grenades in the culture, and she knew how the industry worked, and she just sort of said it like it was, and that's why her coverage became the must see.
Yeah.
And we at the Nerve do hear from a fair number of people who work in the industry, who like secretly watch the show because we are telling the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that so much. She is my icon too. That was like a sad, sad moment in history when she
Yeah.
died. I will always miss Joan Rivers. Okay, quick thought. Someone that's really bugging me this week,
Yeah.
George Clooney.
Tell me why.
I mean, where do I start? I can't. Number one, I think he's so fake. I know that my audience may not agree with. In fact, I know they don't agree with me on this. They're not on the George Clooney hate train yet, but I feel like they'll get there because I used to be a casting director and I used to be obsessed with Hollywood. That's why I got into casting. I was a scripted casting director. That was my dream, just being around celebrity and Hollywood and all that world. And so I used to be enamored by these people, but now that I'm out of it, I feel like I see everyone for such a different. I see them all as so fake. Like everyone feels so fake to me. So when he was on Travis Kelsey's podcast, the Kelsey brothers podcast this week, and he talks to them about this tongue in cheek kind of like, haha, I never argue with my wife. 10 years, we've never argued. What is there to argue about? I married a beautiful, smart, intelligent woman, and she's wonderful. And this like perfect. And I wanted to gag and die. Like, I can't.
Well, you might not be arguing with your wife if perhaps, I'm not saying anything, but maybe it was a brokered marriage. Maybe you're not really living in the same house or the same country very often.
True.
Maybe you had the kind of performative wedding that might call to mind one Cory Booker's recently. I don't know. I don't know. But when people say, like, I've been married 10 years and I've never had an argument with my spouse, they're lying. I think they're lying. And I
True,
don't think
kids.
I don't think it's healthy either. Something is wrong with you if
That's
you've
how I feel.
lived with someone for 10 years and you have never had so much as a disagreement.
That's how I feel. And you're talking about George Clooney and Amal. These are strong, like alpha people. These are not wallflower type. They're powerful people. They're gonna have agreement. I mean, they're gonna have they know what they want. They're not.
Amal Clooney also she is rumored reportedly to come from a family of arms dealers. So,
She freaks me out.
yeah, they're like, her background is so sort of like broadly sketched. Like we know almost nothing about her really. But George Clooney to me, like, so we did him on the Nerve a few months back when he was doing Good Night and Good Luck on Broadway.
Yeah.
And he was being interviewed as if he were Edward R. Murrow.
Okay.
Because my thing with George is that George is constantly trying to prove that he's smart because his dad, who he adores, was a local newscaster.
Okay.
Nick Clooney, and he really seems to revere journalists and journalism and anchors, and he takes himself really seriously, and then so he injects himself into like presidential politics and all this stuff, and he's an actor. You're an actor, okay? You're not a journalist, and it's like it actually it kind of makes me laugh, That said, I will say this: I am curious to see his new film. That's what he's out promoting this week, called Jay Kelly's, directed by Noah Baumbach. He plays an aging movie star whose children are grown, whose career is fading, and who now is realizing that perhaps he spent his time obsessing over the wrong things, such as fame and money, rather than his own children.
Do you know who lived that in real life?
Many of them, but who?
All of them. Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller just had actually a really good documentary. And I'm not like a Ben Stiller person
Right.
really, but Ben Stiller just released a documentary with his sister. I want to say on Apple TV maybe,
Yeah.
about his father and mother in real life, Jerry Stiller and Elaine. I could be wrong. And they were
And Mira.
comedians.
And Mira.
And Mira, thank you so much. And they were comedians and they came up in the industry together. And he and his sister grew up as their children, of course, with their parents being these celebrities. And it was kind of told through the lens of how he raises his kids versus how he was raised. And he's cleaning out their apartment. They both died. It's a really, really beautiful story. But his kids straight up say, Dad, we grew up and you did not pay attention to us. We would be out and we would be talking to you and you would like care more about the fans.
Oh God.
So it's actually a really
want to
interesting
see
story.
that documentary. It's been on my list for since it debuted, and I did see a little clip of that where one of his adult children it was like, "Yeah, you were never around." It's nice that you're kind of paying attention now,
Yeah.
and I don't know that you can ever really repair that. You know, a childhood in which you feel you were in competition for your parents' attention to like strangers win.
Yeah.
Strangers who come up and tell you how much they love you win. And your child is just sort of, you know, it's brutal. And it sounds like, you know, he also says something really kind of dark. I think it wasn't until both parents died and he and his sister, I think her name is Amy, were going through their stuff that he found that Jerry Stiller, his father, had surreptitiously been recording the family their entire lives.
They had footage of everything. It was actually really, really insane. Like everything.
Yeah.
Everything was on camera. It was a really cool movie.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see it. You know, not least because I think it does kind of get at something that the nerve really exists to get at, which is like what it's really like behind the curtain. You know, you've been sold this lie for so long that who wouldn't die to be a rich, famous, beautiful movie star? It's not what it seems in so many cases. It's really not. And I can't imagine that there's a soul out there who would trade coming from a loving, stable family with parents who really gave a shit for that.
It's such an important like point that you bring up, which reminds me, of course, why I reached out to you, because the whole I mean, I could talk to you. I honestly think I could talk to you for can we go on a cruise, just you and I, for 7 weeks? I mean, that's why I love your show, because it's such a beautiful, like just topic to topic. You just bring up so many good points. But
Thank you.
the book Ask Not, and I really wish you read it. I understand that it's not your voice. Why wasn't it your voice on the Audible?
You know, I'm not really, well, Donna, I'm kind of an actress now. You may have caught some of my two-handers with Megyn Kelly.
You are an actress.
You know, I have been to space. I try not to brag about it, but so I'm working on getting my SAG card. And you know, I've said it before, but my goal right now is I want to be cast as a judge on Law and Order, any iteration. I'll even do Law and Order Toronto. I don't care.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, no, but I'm not really an actress, and so like unless you're like a real memoirist or you're like they actually they ask you to hire actors, and you know what they do is
You
they
didn't get the
send
role.
you. I didn't even get an audition. I didn't even get in. I don't know. You know.
It's true. It's not an autobiography, so I guess that makes sense. It's not like a memoir. But okay, I just love your voice because I know you now listening to your show. I got over it fast enough, you know, thank God. And maybe that's why when I bought the book, I purchased the book on Audible. I'm a big audio person. I love a podcast. Even YouTube, I have YouTube Premium. I stick it in my ear and I put my phone in my pocket. But I downloaded Ask Not because when you were on my show the last time, a lot of my listeners said, oh my God, you have to listen to Ask Not, which is, what is the official title? It's about the scorned women. You explain what the full title is.
Sure. It's called Ask Not: The Kennedys and the Women They Destroyed.
Okay. I don't know where I came up with scorned, but it sounded right. The Kennedys and the women they destroyed. Now, I am someone that loves like juicy, salacious novels, but I've never been someone that's interested in the Kennedys at all. Like I did, not more than any just average, you know, okay, whatever. So But I downloaded it because I like you. And I thought, okay, on a rainy day, but I never got around to it. And then one day it was a rainy day and I started listening to it. And when I tell you guys, I mean, I got sucked into this book like a freaking vacuum. I was in, and I get hyperfixated, Maureen. I think I'm ADHD. That's what they call it when you get hyperfixated now, I guess. That's the new thing, is that everyone has I think Mel Robbins told me one day on Instagram.
Careful there.
I know.
Anyway, go on.
I'm joking. I got diagnosed on Instagram with ADHD, and I listened to this book over the course of a few days because it's a pretty significant amount of time that you can listen to it. I can't remember how long this audiobook is. And the way that this book is told, it is a mix of a historical story / juicy, gossipy, like feels like a magazine, feels like a novel, feels like a Real Housewives book. I don't know how to explain it. You put these stories of these women, and it goes back and forth from woman to woman in different categories. And I'm so interested how you kind of compiled all this information. I'm going to ask you. I was hooked line and sinker to every single one of these women that I didn't know a lot about. Some of them, of course, I had heard of. Of course, there's the story of Jackie. There's the story of Marilyn Monroe. You hear the story of RFK's, widow, or the woman that was his first wife, Mary. A lot of women, of course, Carolyn and all the different, women through the big history names, but not the like Martha Moxley, like the smaller ones that I had never heard of, or the mistresses that JFK had. I didn't know a lot of these stories, and I was so obsessed that I think I'm like a Kennedy. And now I want to write a novel. Like, I'm obsessed. So you did it. You became, you brought me into a new world. And I told everyone on my show, I said, you guys, you must buy this book. And so a lot of my listeners now have started to read it and have started to listen to it. And I said I would get you on my show because I need to know more about your process and why you decided to write this book. And that was my long.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for all of the lovely things you said. And that was my goal, to suck in the reader, the listener, no matter how much or little they may have known about the Kennedys and these women. I've been obsessed with this subject for years and years and years. Growing up, my dad was a real Kennedy admirer. Jack Kennedy was a very consequential figure for him. In particular, my mother hated the Kennedys. And every time the Kennedys would come up, she would say, oh my God, the Kennedys, they're so phony, they're so fake. So I had this like duality, and I never quite knew what I thought of the Kennedys. And then, so this is what happened. After Harvey Weinstein was convicted of rape by a jury composed of more men than women, after hearing some very confusing and at testimony, at times the victims did not act in what you would think were logical or rational ways, I thought, wow, like we have really taken like a giant step forward in understanding what survivors of sexual assault go through. And then I thought, okay, the book is about the women. It's about the women. It's not about the men. It's about the women and what was done to them and what they survived. And I wrote the book like a novel. Everything in it is true. It is deeply reported. It is deeply researched. But I wrote it like a novel because I wanted the reader to be in the heads and the hearts of these women and to understand as best you could what it might be like for a Jacqueline Kennedy who is deeply in love with a husband who betrays her constantly, what it was like for a young Jacqueline Kennedy the day of the assassination, what was going through her mind. I always wondered that. What went through Jackie's mind? It's there. You have to know where to find it. But it's never been brought to the front of the history books because the assassination of Jack himself has always been the dominant story, not Jackie, and how she survived it. And then I wanted to bring in also girls and women that most people maybe have never heard of, such as Mimi Alford, who was working at the White House on her first day as a 19-year-old intern, a virgin, who was invited up to the private residence at the end of the day and fed daiquiris and gotten drunk. And the President of the United States, Jack Kennedy, brings her into his wife's bedroom where he unzips his pants and puts her down on the bed. And I believe that was a rape. Mimi doesn't call it a rape. There's the story of Rosemary Kennedy, the beautiful young sister of Jack. Their father, Jack Kennedy's father, lobotomized Rosemary when she was a very young woman. Why? Why? I was never, ever satisfied with the Kennedy line that Rosemary was so mentally incapacitated that they were trying everything they could to remedy that. And the lobotomy was a tragic overcorrection with the best of intentions. And what my reporting found was that it was much more likely that the suspicions of people close to the family were correct, and that Joe had been sexually abusing Rosemary, and that Rosemary had been acting out and was very, very close to outing this most terrible secret. And so Joe had her lobotomized, leaving her with the mental and physical capacities of a 2-year-old for the rest of her life. And I firmly believe that death would have been a much kinder fate.
But you didn't say that in the book, did you?
It's in the book.
I don't remember hearing that you thought that he was actually.
Well, people close to the family, very close
You
friends
said
of Jack
that.
Kennedy's, believed that Joe had been sexually abusing Rosemary.
So I don't remember hearing that one line, but I definitely remember feeling like it felt like an intentional
Oh,
procedure.
yeah. No, it was absolutely done that way. You know, his wife, Rosemary's mother, was against it. Her sister, Kick, who was working at the time as a reporter and had asked around, is this a legitimate procedure that should be done? And she went back to her parents and she said, "Oh, no, Daddy, this is not anything we want for Rosemary." And he did it secretly against their wishes. What remains a mystery was how he got Rosemary to that hospital and what he told her to convince her to get into that operating room.
And we don't know.
We don't know.
That story was so tragic. Just thinking about the fact that she actually, minus a few little disabilities, she seemed like she had a life ahead of her. And it was completely taken away from her. It was so sad the way you wrote it, too, just in such a, kind of like how what was it? She was singing a song or something like.
Yeah, they had her singing, and as
Slowly it was gone.
As they sliced through her brain with the equivalent of a dull butter knife, But there are also stories in the book that, and so Jackie, for example, there are 4 different chapters for Jackie because there's 4 different Jackies that the reader is going to meet. And these are Jackie reinvented herself, and she was a genius at it. And she, there's so much in the book that is about their glamour, their power, their strength, their elegance. They're cool. I'm very intent on the readers knowing, and I talk about it in the book, that these women, be it Jackie or Carolyn Bessette, who married JFK Jr., or Joan Kennedy, who married Ted Kennedy, these women had a star power all their own. They attracted these very powerful, ambitious men who needed supernovas by their side. They needed the qualities that these women brought to them were qualities that these men did not have. Jack Kennedy used to talk all the time about Jackie's how well read she was, how well traveled she was, that she could speak French, that she had taste. She taught him how to dress better. He would begin teasing his aides who were wearing, brown shoes with black suits and say, "Never, never, never." Carolyn really gave John an element of cool and edge and interesting. She made him interesting. He was a dull guy. He was a dull, not very bright guy who, unreported really until Ask Not, had quite the habit of putting the women in his life in mortal danger.
Well, I was really surprised, actually, because I didn't know a lot about his life before her.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually didn't really, like I said, I didn't really know that much. I knew about their death, and about the plane. So I learned a lot. He was he didn't sound like a great guy, to
No,
be honest.
no.
Most of these guys did not sound like great guys, but he did not seem like a great guy in the sense that he was a little bit of he was like a rebel, a little bit of like a danger guy. He put these women in really precarious situations on boats, on planes, on motorcycles or whatever. I mean, all kinds of just dangerous situations. He had a girlfriend that he almost basically killed on a boat,
More
on
than
a
once.
raft or
More
whatever.
than once. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, isn't there an upcoming TV show about the two of them, about Carolyn?
Yes. Yeah. Ryan Murphy's doing it. It's
How
called
do you feel about that?
American Love Story.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed your question there.
How do you feel about that?
Well, listen, I looked at the casting. The entire internet's been mocking the casting.
Yeah.
JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. It's difficult because those two really did have star power. They had that it factor. More than, frankly, a lot of actors do themselves. And I think that Ryan Murphy, I guess he's probably going to play it pretty safe and like tell like the version of events where it's like it's the Kennedy fairy tale and oh my God, and then there's the tragedy and it's like Greek myths and he flew too close to the sun. No, the guy got in a plane. He had no business flying at night. He was told multiple times, do not take off. Do not take off alone. He had a flight instructor offer to go with him. He said absolutely not. His leg had just gotten out of a cast. He was seen swilling wine on that tarmac. The haze was so thick that far more experienced pilots were like, hey, I'm not going up. He takes his wife and his sister-in-law up. He turns off comms with ground control, with air traffic control. He did not file a flight plan, and he goes out over the open, dark water.
An idiot.
I posit that this was a murder-suicide. I don't know if the guy was dialed into it or not. Everything in his life was falling apart. His wife was leaving him. His magazine was failing, and his sister wasn't speaking to him. He had zero internal resources because the guy had never been told no.
Wow.
Oh,
And
and Donna, one other
yeah.
thing about that, which is in the book in Ask Not. Again, all this stuff has gone unreported. It's all true. This is in the NTSB report because, the American media has a fidelity to the Kennedys that is one-way street, okay?
That's
I
what,
don't know
yeah.
why it exists. JFK Jr. that night in the air almost crashed into a packed American Airlines flight.
Yes.
There were over 200 people on that plane, and he almost crashed into it. And the pilots of that plane were frantically talking to air traffic control. Can anybody get a hold of this guy? And they were like, no, he's not answering.
Crazy.
And it was their maneuver that saved all those souls on board. The guy was a destroyer.
And this is the theme of this book, which I was so floored by because I didn't know much about the Kennedys, but I'd never really heard that these were, I hate to say it, but pretty bad men. From
Yeah.
this book, which you didn't create out of thin air. You took research. You never
Yeah.
created the stories from your brain. It was all, I mean, you are a researcher.
I'm a researcher. I'm a reporter. I went and traveled for this book. I went to the home where Rosemary Kennedy, who was lobotomized, lived out the rest of her days.
Wow.
Before it was closed forever. I got there like 2 weeks before that facility was shutting it down forever. Want to
Wow.
know why? They don't want people to see the way Rosemary lived. They don't want people to see it. Martha Moxley,
Oh my God.
15-year-old girl, sexually assaulted, brutally murdered. A Kennedy cousin spent time in prison for that crime. His conviction was eventually vacated with the help of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I got to the courthouse to go through the evidence boxes in Martha's case, and I was told I was just in the nick of time because they were being sealed up forever within 2 business days because that conviction had been vacated and no other journalist or historian was ever going to get their hands or eyes on them again. And I really felt, Donna, really, while working on this book, that the spirits were kind of with me, that the
Timing.
spirits of these women really wanted their stories told. I consider Ask Not. Ask Not it's a fun read. It by design, I wanted it to be an enjoyable read. But I also really do believe it should be classified as reconsidered history, because the girls and the women in this book, so much of their lives, if not some of them in entirety, have been lost to history. And I don't think you can understand the Kennedys, and I don't think you can understand American politics or culture where we are now without knowing the full truth of who this family is and what they've done.
That's how I felt. I felt like when I was reading it, I felt like my brain was unlocking to something that I didn't know existed. And I couldn't find anything even close to the information that you were revealing when I started, because I wanted more. After I finished the book, I was telling everyone, and I said on my Instagram and my show, I said, and my Patreon, I said, please, if you guys know anything about the Kennedys, like, give me everything that I should be reading and watching right now, because I want more. I want to see it all, especially like the Jackie story. I was so touched by the day of the assassination and just kind of her journey. And I want to share something else with you, because which, by the way, everyone shared like documentaries and movies, and nothing was like getting it to me. Like nothing. I did watch her tour of the White House, and I thought that was really fascinating, because I want to see her. I don't want to see
Yeah.
I don't want to see like Natalie Portman playing her.
I get it.
You
Same.
know.
Same.
But I will say, while I was reading this book, it was about 2 weeks after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And I'm telling you, I needed to ask you this. You know how everyone had a really, really weird like reaction to Erica Kirk's reaction to her husband being assassinated? When I am listening to you talk about Jackie Kennedy's reaction and how she maintained like a stoicism, however, she still did want everyone to know what they did to her husband, etc. When you were watching Erica experience those first few days, etc., did you like see it any sort of through line, or did you not connect in any way? Because that's what I was feeling when I was listening to her take those first couple days. I was
Yeah.
like, maybe that's where she was getting that. Everyone was so confused by Erica's reactions. And I thought maybe she's like
Yeah.
reading Jackie Kennedy's reactions. I
It's
don't know.
so interesting. They're definitely, I did think about Jackie a lot. I did. And I still do, vis-a-vis Erica Kirk. You know, I saw it a lot when Erica made that address
The
to
first
the
one.
country, the first one where she said she was going to take over Turning Point, and that the assassin who killed her husband had lit a fire in her, and she wasn't going to allow Charlie and what he stood for to be extinguished. In fact, it was only going to amplify it and make the fire burn brighter. There's a lot of Jackie in that. I'm sure, I don't know Erica, I've never spoken to her, but I'm sure she has taken some inspiration from the way that Jackie comported herself immediately after the assassination. And, you know, you mentioned Natalie Portman playing Jackie in that film that was, by the way, written and directed by men. And it's about how Jackie really coped in the days after the assassination, and her architecting the Life magazine piece in which she invented Camelot. And I hate that movie.
It's not
hate
good.
that movie. And I will tell you exactly why. Those
Why?
men stripped Jackie of her power. They depicted her as this completely destroyed woman who was drinking and chain smoking her way through the White House and getting it together to throw this funeral and get this story out, but that was about it. And I hated it. And that director, God, what's his name? He does this all the time. He did the Diana film, Spencer.
Okay.
He did it about another iconic dead female, but it was the same thing with Diana Spencer. He stripped Diana of her power, and there's something I find really misogynistic and sexist about it. I don't like it.
Pablo Larraín?
Yeah, Pablo Larraín, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
guy.
I really struggled with it. And I was hoping it would be a little more. I just connected to her so much more through your book. And I
Yeah.
did not connect through her at all with Natalie. I actually couldn't get through the movie.
Yeah, it's just, it's very it's like there's a torpor to it. The writer and the director could not get inside Jackie's head, and it makes me angry because, like I said, if you want to find it, it's there. And like I went through so many books and contemporaneous reports and interviews that she gave, and they were rare, but she did give them. And there was a huge piece the New York Times Magazine ran on the eve of Jackie's 50th birthday, and she gave her friends permission to speak for it. She wasn't going to be interviewed. She was very, very, very savvy about her image, but she allowed them to talk, and what emerged was a portrait of a very nuanced, complicated woman who was far from perfect, but who is extremely smart. One of my favorite things she ever said before her marriage to Jack, before she became First Lady, before she became the widow who got the nation and her children through this assassination, by the way, signaling to the world at large, to our enemies, that America was not only going to survive this tragedy, but we were going to emerge stronger for it. That's the soft power of these roles, but real power. She said that her dream in life was to be the overall art director, of the 20th century. And she really did accomplish that in many, many ways. I'm coming to you right now from New York City, and when we're done, I'm going to go through Grand Central Station. She saved Grand Central Station. She saved it. It was about to be demolished. And it was one of the rare times she used her celebrity and leverage, and they were told it was an impossibility, that everything was in motion and there was nothing that could be done, and she saved it.
That's amazing. You love her, and I love that.
I do.
It comes through in the book. So, have you ever thought about potentially turning Ask Not into a series or a movie? Like, I'm not joking. I think you should consider this if you haven't.
I think it's a natural for either a docu-series or a scripted series for sure, and it's
Has to be.
producers who've optioned it and things. How these things, like the idea that anything actually gets made.
I know.
It's almost a miracle if something gets made. But Ask Not, I really feel it's just waiting for the right person to midwife it. I feel very protective of it. I think it's a special book. I feel very protective of all of these women and their stories. And when I travel around to different spots that are either where they lived or where they died, or I tried to visit just about every spot where a woman died. I went to where Mary Jo Kopechne died. I felt it was very important to be there. It's spiky stuff. It's difficult stuff, and I just think it needs the right person with the right touch. So I have hope that person is out there and will find Ask Not and give it another iteration that will only bring more attention to all of these stories that so deserve to be told.
I love it so much, and you are the perfect person for that story.
you.
It was really a pleasure talking to you about it, and I'm so glad. And you also wrote another book that I haven't dived into, American Predator or something. Yeah. That feels creepy.
American Predator is true crime. I always say that you could put Ask Not in the true crime section as well. It's a total fit. But it's about, it's called American Predator, the most meticulous serial killer of the 21st century. And this was a guy that the FBI, their criminal profilers, had never seen the likes of before. I had read a very brief news story about it, and when I read that they had never seen this MO before, they had never seen somebody active all over the United States for as long. I knew that was a story. I knew that was a book, and that is a wild, wild ride. It's also, again, like Ask Not, it's written like a novel because I just want you in there. I want you in there. And it's I'm such a fan of true crime. I've
Me too.
loved it since I was a kid. And so I really feel like the best true crime is a high bar, and I really went into American Predator like with that goal. Like meet the books that I love the most, like The Stranger Beside Me or Fatal Vision or The Executioner's Song,
Oh, okay. I'm putting those all on my list now. I'm going to get into that then. I mean, if you wrote it, I'm a
Take your
fan.
time with it. Maybe you want to get through the holidays first. Maybe you want to let yourself
Merry
off the hook.
Christmas.
Yeah. Get through New Year's,
Keep things light. Keep things
Yeah.
light. Maureen, so new episodes of The Nerve twice a week, 3 times a week, 17 times a week?
Oh my God. So we're on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, we do the Nerve at night. Fridays and Saturdays, we do the mini. So 4 times
Nice.
a week right now.
Are you taking any time off for the holidays?
We are, but we're going to front load so that we've got original content. We've got a very special couple of editions of The Nerve that are unlike anything we've ever done.
Can't wait.
Coming before the holidays. And then, of course, right before the holidays, we're doing the first annual Nerve Awards.
Yes. I cannot wait. I love your show and I love following you.
Thanks,
And you are
Dawn.
phenomenal. Thank you so much for being here. Really, honestly, thank you for
having
taking
me.
time out of your schedule.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun. And thank you for all the kind words about Ask Not. I really, really appreciate them.
It was one of the best books I think
my
I've ever
God.
read.
Oh my God. Thank you.
I say
Wow,
that
thank
honestly.
you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Maureen.
Take care, Doc.